And welcome to another episode of the Two Fans Podcast. I'm your co-host, Joshua Ament.
And I'm your other co-host, Ari Jesselson.
This is what happens when we have an 8-day hiatus and I forget how things work and I accidentally mute myself without having a quick way to unmute myself. But so we're probably going to cut that out and you're going to be like, wait, what just happened? But all you need to know is that we're back. The limitations of religion give us a Tuesday recap.
Woo! No Crown Horn for Tuesday recaps. We already established that last time. But yes, and we do have a really big week for this. So where do you want to start off?
I want to start off talking about basketball because that's something that we really have neglected for a while now. Like we're already pretty much a month and a half away from the playoffs, and we've I think mentioned one thing that actually relates to the game itself. But the trade deadline just happened, and there were a lot of trades made. I think the biggest story, though, and what I want to start with, is sort of three trades in one, which goes into the fire sale of the Orlando Magic.
Yeah, and that was a pretty interesting thing. And before we start with what exactly happened, we could all admit that the Magic really shot themselves in the foot. I don't know if we could curse. Maybe next week we start cursing, but they really shot themselves in the foot. They really done bad, and it's established that they're going to be in rebuild mode. And let's start off with a positive for you, the Chicago Bulls, because that played a big thing for it. For those who don't know, the Chicago Bulls acquired Nikola Vucevic, Vucevic, the All-Star center from the Magic, and forward Al-Farouq Aminu from the Magic. In exchange, the Magic will get Wendell Carter Jr., Otto Porter Jr., and 2 first-round picks.
Yeah, I'll talk about this from the Magic's perspective first off, because I have to disagree with you on this. That I think for the Magic, this is a good thing for them, that they've kind of just sort of been in basically basketball purgatory for a while, just like always at the middle of the pack, like the 7 or 8 seed in the East, first round exits just about every year. And it wasn't working. And so they have talent and they trade away guys like Nikola Vucevic, they trade away Aaron Gordon, they trade away Evan Fournier for whatever prospects and for whatever draft picks they can get now. And I think it's just nice for Magic fans to know that they actually at least have a direction that they're in. And yes, it's going to set them back a couple of years, but they weren't really going anywhere with the core they had. No disrespect to Vucevic, Gordon, or Fournier, but that's not a championship team.
Yeah, obviously. And a lot of those guys are kind of on the older side. We know Aaron Gordon isn't like what we saw him from a few years back. He's a little aging. He's still got a lot in the tank, but he's not a guy who could be a leader right now. But we've seen time and time again where the Magic failed to rebuild on key players. And we see now where, I guess for me at least, the average sports fan, I don't really see the number one guy anymore that the Magic could have. I mean, who is that now? A mediocre Otto Porter Jr., Markelle Fultz, who I do love, but I think he'll be the number one guy for me because really we're looking at this Michael Carter Williams, Wendell Carter Jr., Mo Bamba, Cole Anthony. I don't really see some of these guys as the key players that they need to be. I still see that you really are in big rebuild mode. And I think those 2 first-round picks that you're going to get are going to be a key thing that the Magic are going to have if they play those cards right.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a thing that for the Magic, I think is a big win for them. And for the Bulls, it's honestly pretty much the only reason why I'm not all in and like, yes, this is a win for the Bulls. Because for the short-term future, what it does for the Bulls is it gives them a bona fide all-star to pair with Zach LaVine in Nikola Vucevic. And this is more than just a rental. He's under contract for the next, I believe, 2 years and change. So he's going to be sticking around for a while. But again, it's those giving away those 2 first-round picks for me that for the Bulls, I think puts them in a risky situation for the future. Because again, while the middle of the East right now is pretty crowded, and this could end up being a move to sort of take them over the top into like the fifth or the fourth seed. This alone won't make them championship contenders, and what it really does is it puts a lot of pressure on the front office to go and make a move in free agency. And while I will give Arturas Kanisavas, Bulls GM, the benefit of the doubt here, because he hasn't shown otherwise that he's going to, invest in the team. But in terms of the free agency class itself, I don't have much reason to believe right now that there are any big names per se that contracts are expiring and don't want to re-sign. So if you can find a free agent like that and Karnisovas can lure him into Chicago, I will eat my words. But I find that hard to believe.
Oh, look who really is Djokovic in these past 2 games he played with the Bulls. He's having 21 points, 0.5 blocks, 4.5 assists per game, and did I say the? Yeah, I did say that part. So he is putting up the numbers. And to look at the Bulls roster, you finally have. You can find a lot of people are going to say that you finally have a number 2 guy to fit Zach LaVine. Personally, I think Thaddeus Young or Denzel Valentine have been playing up key roles when they needed to, and they have been stepping up. But you really have a consistent number 2 guy on that Bulls roster now. And yes, you did give up a lot. But who really are going to be the big names that are realistically to get at the time? Looking at the free agents next year, you got Chris Paul, Kawhi Leonard, Mike Conley, Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan, Otto Porter Jr., Victor Oladipo just signed, who was trying to get an extension, Gordon Dragic, Kelly Oubre. So you do have some guys. The problem is I see a lot of these guys wanting to go to a bigger market like the LA or the Miami or the New Yorks. Getting Djokovic was a pricey thing, but remember, he's an experienced vet. He has time in the league. He is the number 2 guy who could contrast Zach LaVine. I think the 2 picks are a lot. But we did see times in the past where they make it work and they've really built it up through the trades.
Well, first of all, can we dispel this small market Chicago rumor? It's the third largest metro area in the U.S. Let's stop with that. It's a big market, and my thing isn't that a free agent isn't going to want to go there. It's the fact that I don't see a lot of free agents that are going to want to leave. You see what you mentioned, Chris Paul and Kawhi Leonard, I think the 2 biggest guys. I don't see either of them noticeably unhappy in the situation they are now. They're both on some of the top teams in the West, and I don't see them leaving.
Yeah, and that kind of goes to my point where you had to make a move in the trade to maybe get that guy. It would have been more risky doing it through free agency. And while Chicago isn't a small market at all, for a lot of the players, would you rather play in Chicago with Zach LaVine, or do you rather go to LA with like Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Andre Drummond, Anthony Davis, LeBron James, even New York with the Nets, even with that 5-team All-Star, which we will talk about later in the episode because that was just a big move. But for the Bulls, they did give up a lot, but Nikola Jokic has proven to be a guy who could show up, who could play the best. And I guess these past 2 games, he's really shown what he could do.
Yeah, I will make a compilation on how many ways you can pronounce Vucevic, but that's not the only thing that the Magic have done. They've also traded Aaron Gordon to the Denver Nuggets in exchange for Gary Harris, R.J. Hampton, and a first-round pick, as well as sending Evan Fournier to the Boston Celtics in exchange for 2 second-round picks.
Yeah, and JaVale McGee was also sent in that package to the Nuggets with Aaron Gordon, which is a key thing to add up. But just looking at Aaron Gordon, the player, obviously you saw the dunk he made, one of those first 180 dunks he made against that Jokic assist. And while he isn't the player he was in the past, and I got to admit for the Magic, it was a pretty smart move. Obviously, he wasn't the same guy as before. He's only averaging 14 points a game, which isn't totally bad. 4.2 assists and 6.6 rebounds per game. So it's kind of lukewarm compared to the past what he was. Obviously, he's an aging guy. But for the Nuggets, what's his name? You got Djokovic, you got Jamal. I don't remember the last name, but you have some guys who could really pull it off. And a lot of people are saying, "Oh, the Nuggets need to get over the hump. They need this one guy." I could see this one guy being the. I could see Gordon being that one guy. Then that's the Nuggets needed. Excuse me.
I really have to disagree with you there. That as much as like we want to say that Nuggets, oh, they're one of the teams sort of battling it out in the West. This adding another name could take them over the top. If you just look at the numbers the past couple of years, Aaron Gordon, like you said, just hasn't been the guy that he was. Like he, in terms of win shares per 48 minutes, he's only averaged about 0.049 this season. I think just 0.6, excuse me, 0.06 last season. For reference, the Nuggets' previous starting power forward, Paul Millsap, this season has been averaging 0.147 win shares per 48, which is triple that efficiency. So really, how much are you getting? And yes, some of it you may be able to attribute to Nikola Jokic right there in that front court having an astounding season to help Millsap, but the disparity in numbers there, I feel like is too much to chalk it up to just teammates.
But yeah, it definitely is a large margin for the thing. I'm having trouble with the unmute button. I think that's my biggest problem with this today. And they are big numbers. But you do have a lot of talent. Jamal Murray, that's his last name. Michael Porter Jr., Monte Morris, Paul Millsap, who is the better power forward. So why not have Aaron Gordon riding the bench? And he did improve from that first game. I mean, he scored in the first game there. He had 13 points, 6 for 9 of shooting, which isn't totally bad. And as time keeps moving, we will see how well we could see how well Aaron Gordon's been playing as he's more in line with the system, how things roll in Denver. He finally doesn't have to be the number one, number two guy. He could take a back seat and just do what he does. He doesn't have to put the pressure on himself. You have Djokovic, you have Jamal, you got a lot of these guys who could be the number one, number two, number three guy. Now Aaron's role could be, hey, let me be the guy I am at heart. Let me be the role player that I need to be to do this. And as the system rolls, maybe he improves, maybe he doesn't. But so he's still playing pretty decent for now.
All right, you can make that case from Aaron Gordon's perspective, but then when you look at it from the perspective of the Nuggets, this is not a small package that they're giving Orlando. They gave them one of their most consistent role players in Gary Harris. They gave them a young budding prospect in RJ Hampton, and they gave them a first round pick. That is not something you give up just for a role player.
Yes, and while it's a lot, I'm saying that Gordon, when at his worst, will be the role player that he's gonna be, like what he is right now in these past two games. But he really could take the time to become the number two, number three guy. He's definitely not going to be ahead of Djokovic. Maybe he won't be. Maybe he won't be in front of Jamal Williams, but he definitely will be a guy who steps up on the court. We did see that in the past. But obviously, yeah, they gave up a large package for a role player. I see that in the Magic in the future. I mean, you got 3 first round picks. You got 3 first round picks in trades alone for these 2 trades. But what I'm saying is, Aaron Gordon, if he needs to, he could be the role player that he's doing right now, where he's averaging 13 points, 1 steal, 2 rebounds a game, 1 assist per game in these past 2 games. He could be that type of player who just passes the ball around. He doesn't need to be the leader right in the moment. But when he goes more in the game and he keeps playing more, we could see him kind of developing more, seeing what happens more. I mean, this Nugget system is going to be pretty interesting to see.
Yeah, that I will agree on. It will be interesting to see how this all plays out with the Nuggets, with the battle for those sort of top 4, top 5 in the West. But let's move to a player moving to the East. Victor Oladipo was traded by the Rockets to the Miami Heat, and all I have to say to that is poor Houston. First the Texans, and now the Rockets, just complete implosion. And it's not like the Asterisks are any better morally. So.
Oh yeah, so Victor Oladipo was traded on Thursday to the Miami Heat for Avery Bradley, Kelly Olunkiek. I'm not pronouncing these names right. I know that. And a swap of the
Olenek.
tw- thank you. And swapping the 2022 first round picks. This is big for Miami. Obviously, we don't have to say why this is big because Oladipo is a great player. And this year, he's averaging 21.2 points per game, has 1.2 steals, 5 assists, and 4.8 rebounds. The only thing that would hurt him is we see in the past that he has a history with injuries. And that's something a player can't control when they get hurt. Obviously, we all know that. But that is a big thing that does hurt the players. My big concern is now that he's out for an illness. Again, and that's something else that you can't really control what you're doing. But he does have a tendency to be out in the games. Yeah. So we did see him. We did see him play less games before. We did see him off the court. But this still is a major key piece for Miami, which is going to help them make another push.
Yeah, of course. Of course, they had that sort of surprise run to the finals in the bubble. Of course, they also made a deal for Andre Iguodala the trade deadline a year ago. So we'll see if this can make a similar impact. But there have been some trades, and there have also been a couple of other signings after buyouts from other teams that are going to help out a couple of contenders.
Definitely, and I think let's start with our West. Let's start with our New York, with the New York Nets. Yeah, so on top of Blake Griffin, they also got LaMarcus Aldridge, who, yes, he is an aging player. He isn't the same guy, but there still is a key veteran who could be the leader on and off the court for this team. He doesn't have to be the leader who puts up the most points per game. He can be one of those guys who really helps the younger guys develop into the roles they need to be. We see the Nets create their big five right now. Five past all-star players, five future Hall of Famers even. And
I
just for
think
the
you I
Nets.
think you could put in even six if you want to include DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I forgot about DeAndre Jordan because there's just so many stars on the team. And we're just talking about the future Hall of Famers. Obviously, this Nets roster is stacked. And I don't need to tell you that. I think if you know the NBA just a little bit, you don't have to be a fan of the NBA. If you just know it, you already know that this is a crazy team. I mean, LaMarcus Aldridge, you got Spencer Dinwiddie, Kevin Durant, Jeff Green, Blake Griffin, James Harden, Joe Harris, Kyrie Irving, DeAndre Jordan, and it's just incredible roster. But the one thing that I gotta say is about LaMarcus first. But the one thing I have to say about LaMarcus Aldridge is that he's 35 years old. He's at the end of the road for his career, and he's definitely towards the end of it of this incredible Hall of Fame career. And he definitely did have a dip in stats compared to last season. He's only averaging 13.7 points per game, only has 1.7 assists and 4.5 rebounds. That is a drop from 2019-2020, where he had 18.9 points, 2.4 assists, and 7.4 rebounds. But the thing is, he doesn't need to be the guy who's on the court has to pull up all these big stats like Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. He can be one of these guys who just goes for the role player, helps the younger guys develop, and when he needs to be on the court, become the role player that he is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like we can agree that as much as we want to make out the names that Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge, that there is a lot of name power with this Brooklyn Nets team, especially in the front court. But it's not 2015 anymore. It is 2021. And these guys just aren't who they were. But with that being said, of course, they're still nothing to scoff at. They can still provide a lot of good depth, can fill in those role player positions when necessary. Again, I know I said it before when they signed Blake Griffin that my thing is that that in the East, when you have guys like Giannis and Embiid roaming around in the top of the East, you need, I feel like, a big man as dominant as that. Um, will, I guess, sort of the contributions of Griffin and Aldridge combined be enough to match it? I don't know. That's again going to be very interesting to see.
Definitely. And like you said, we're not in 2015. These aren't the key almost MVP seasons that these guys had. They are aging veterans. They are at the end of their careers. Like we saw Blake Griffin, who's only averaging 8 points this season. But he's still Blake Griffin. He's still LaMarcus Aldridge. These are still big guys who could perform when they need to perform. And these are still key players that are going to help any team. But just going to Kevin Durant, come on, guys. He didn't join a team with 4 All-Stars this year. It was him and Kyrie Irving, and the Nets expanded upon that. These jokes don't make sense at this point, and while some of these are kind of funny, they really don't really make sense at this point.
I mean, the roles are kind of reversed now, where the Nets sort of are now, I guess, being painted a little bit as the sort of villain super team of the NBA, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, Durant not necessarily isn't taking sort of the role of the snake that he did when he went to the Warriors. Although really, now you could probably say it's more Harden. But again, that's all semantics. That's all narratives. The point is, the Nets have a lot of names on that team. And you know who else has a lot of names now? The Los Angeles Lakers. The newest addition to that is Andre Drummond.
Yeah, and he got a buyout with the Cavaliers, and he signed with the Lakers. But the thing is, this isn't 2015 Andre Drummond. And if you have seen any of those Cavs games, you will know that he's kind of a crybaby. I mean, there's multiple times on the bench where he's just sitting away from teammates. He's not interacting. A lot of players even called him a locker room cancer. And that might be because he was on the Cavaliers and this is the Lakers. But it's still going to affect what's going to happen with him. But he's still having an incredible year. 17.5 points, 1.6 steals, 2.6 assists, and 13.5 rebounds. He is expected to start over the Gasol. I think it's Marc Gasol and the Lakers. That is going to be a key point for the Lakers, yeah. And he's expected to start against Marc Gasol, as I said, so that's going to be an improvement. As we did see Marc Gasol not living up to the hype when signing with the Lakers.
Yeah, and well, again, you can say that Drummond's hasn't been the best of teammates. He also just hasn't been in the best of situations. He's like Blake Griffin. He was rotting away on Detroit. I mean, for even longer than he was, then sort of shipped off to Cleveland, post LeBron Cleveland. So what are you really going to do there? So now I guess it'll be nice to see him on a contending team. I will say that sort of even the 2019-2020 season, the season when he on both Detroit and Cleveland, he averaged about 0.108 win shares per 48. Just for comparison, Gasol right now their starting center is averaging 1.122 win shares per 48. So it really is just more depth to that front court. Of course, you have Drummond, Gasol, Montrezl Harrell, and then Anthony Davis. So I mean that front court can really go toe to toe with any in the league.
Definitely, and they're just building on top of a stacked roster who won the finals last year. They really just Thanos Infinity Gauntlet this situation, as they just kept adding key players, they added big names, and they kept the bigger names that they had. And I think it's reasonable to say that we're going to get a Lakers Nets finals this year.
I mean, we did also say we were going to get a Lakers Bucks finals the past year, but I mean, it is still, the playoffs are still a gauntlet. Things do happen, but that is, I'm sure, what people will predict slash project for their hopes. But hey, we got a month and a half to go until the playoffs even start. So, we'll just wait it out until then and see how things play out.
Oh, definitely. And just in trade that really interested in me, kind of we talk about these hype teams like the Clippers last year, the Bucks last year. We do talk. There's a lot of hype teams that never really live up to it, and of course the Clippers. As this past week, they traded three-time sixth man of the year Lou Williams for Atlanta Hawks Chris Paul. I'm sorry, Rajon Rondo.
Oof. That's all I'm going to say.
I have to say it.
But yeah, that of course with a lot of trades, this one honestly kind of even flew under my radar. I guess you could probably make some joke about Lou Williams, Magic City, something like that. With wings, something bubble. I don't know. I'm too lazy to make those jokes. I'm just gonna give you the template. But yeah, I don't really know what the dynamic of the locker room is like with the Clippers. I don't really know uh again how this makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, Williams has been a key contributor to the Clippers for as long as he's been there. So I don't know.
Yeah, and the man is a three-time defensive player of the year. So I'm a sixth man of the year. He's a key role. He's a key player on the team. He's averaging 12 points, 3.4 assists, and 2.1 rebounds. He is a sixth man of the year, so he's a really reliable guy. And while Rajon really had a fall where he's only averaging 3.9 I'm sorry, 3.5 assists and 2 rebounds. He is still one of those leaders. Just look at his highlights, and he still is a defensive guy. He knows how to create the plays. He knows how to open things up on offense. And while Lou Williams is definitely the better player right now, Rajon Rondo is definitely the better player to be a coach and to be an ally in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. It really still just sort of does confuse me, but um, who knows? Maybe this will work out in the end. Maybe we have no idea what we're talking about when it comes to basketball. One of those things may already be confirmed. So let's. I'll give you a second to correct me if I'm missing anything in the basketball realm. Your silence
Uh,
tells me that we have
Go ahead.
everything covered. Great. So we can
Yeah, I
move
mean,
on.
the thing is,
You,
we're both really not basketball guys. You could tell our main suit is football, and I think Josh would like to carry that up.
yeah, of course. The NBA was not the only place where big trades were happening. The NFL draft order shook itself up drastically over the top 12 picks. Three of them, that's 25% for the arithmetic nerds, have changed hands. With the San Francisco 49ers, Philadelphia Eagles, and Miami Dolphins conducting a massive three-team trade.
Definitely. And I think a lot of us really did hear about it and were surprised. Obviously, that Dolphins team, they were the youngest team, not having a guy over the age of 30 on the team. They're having multiple first round picks now, and it's a really big thing. But the one thing I want to talk about for now, the 49ers. They now have the number 3 overall pick. Jimmy Garoppolo is a decent quarterback. He's not consistent yet, but he's had injuries. You have a lot of guys who do defend him, and you got a lot of guys who hate him. So if I'm John Lynch right now, what do I do?
I mean, John Lynch, if I'm not mistaken, he actually has commented since on the trade, has said that the intent to keep Jimmy Garoppolo, I think, at least what their outward image seems to be saying is that they traded up to draft a quarterback to take a redshirt year under Jimmy Garoppolo, um, which I really, again, my initial reaction when I heard that the Niners were turning up was, why are you doing this? You don't need to draft a quarterback right now. You have a decent one in Jimmy G, but this also could work out pretty well long term. Again, like I think uh, rookie quarterbacks that spend that rookie year under a solid mentor, I think, I mean, the poster child, of course, in Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes. But it seems to work out pretty well. So I don't blame the Niners for trying to do something like that. But they could also just be faking us all out and trading up to draft a guy they may really like in say Penei Sewell, Jamar Chase, maybe get the heir apparent to George Kittle and Kyle Pitts. I don't really know.
So going back to Jimmy Garoppolo, there are a lot of people who defend him, and I am one of them. For starters, he's only played in the 4 years he's been with San Francisco. He's only started a full 16-game season once. We all know in 2017 he was traded to them by the Patriots and won all 5 games that he started. The next year he got hurt. In the year after that, 2019, was the only time so far that he's played full 16 games. In those 16 games, he was 13-3, 69.1 nice completion record, 3,978 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions. That is not bad at all. And for a team who did go to the Super Bowl, only to lose to the Kansas City Chiefs, where there were a lot of bad calls in that game. That's something we could all admit. That there were a lot of missed calls, a lot of things that should have been called against the Chiefs. But whatever, that was the past. He still is a reliable quarterback. I see it's stupid to have some guys ride the bench. And especially now, in a generation like this, where a lot of people always hate on rookies, always think it's stupid for guys to ride the bench. We see guys hating on Tua, who was a rookie who wasn't supposed to play coming off a major injury. And people are calling him a bust. I see major articles of people saying that Tua is a bust right now. I don't see why it's worth it. There really is no point to take a quarterback. I think they're just trying to scare us out and trading to fake us out.
Yeah, of course. Clearly they have their sights set on somebody. They traded away the 12th overall pick, a 2022 first round pick, a 2023 first round pick, as well as a 2023 third round pick, in exchange for just that number 3 overall pick. So they clearly, again, have their sights set on someone. Probably going to draft him, probably going to develop him. The only thing that I will say is that I remember a couple of years ago where the 2017 NFL draft, I believe it was, the Niners had the 2nd overall pick, and then a team was made the questionable move of trading up one pick just to and giving up a bunch of different late round picks just to pick a guy that would have been there anyway. So, who knows? I want to look now to let's look at the Eagles now, sort of what they give up, what they get, and what it means for them. Because this is really one that I honestly don't know. They trade away the 6th overall pick, as well as the 156th overall pick in this year's draft, which I believe would be a 4th rounder. Someone correct me on that. No, that's a 5th rounder, I think. One of the two. And in exchange, they get the 12th overall pick, the 123rd overall pick, which I believe would be a 4th rounder, as well as a 1st round pick next year. So really, because I don't know what it means for them. So, Ari, what say you?
Well, I feel like a lot of us really don't know what it means for the Eagles. They are a really inconsistent team. We've seen a lot of times where we are like, what are they doing? What's happening? And now there are rumors that the Eagles want to draft a quarterback and they're unsatisfied with Jalen Hurts. Obviously, these are all rumors, so we really never know what's going to happen. And I think for the Eagles, we never know what's going to happen. For all I know, they're probably going to draft another wide receiver, and the next pick behind them is going to be a better wide receiver. But if I'm the Eagles now, I got to think of a way to protect Jalen Hurts. That was the biggest issue with Carson Wentz, that they were never able to protect him. He could never have a secure line, it seemed like. Obviously, the receivers are a pretty big issue now, but you do have some of those guys who you do have to work with now, and you do have a pretty decent tight ends. If you want to keep Ertz, if not, you got Dallas Goedert, but if I'm them, I got to work on my line. I want to make sure that my rookie quarterback, who has proven himself to be a starter in my organization, is protected. I got to do whatever it takes to protect this guy.
Yeah, again, like I will say that that when it comes to football, the one area in which I am lacking is draft/prospect analysis. So I can't really say whether I like or dislike any prospects. Clearly, the Eagles didn't seem to like any of the prospects going sort of in between 6 through 10. I guess why they traded down. But again, I really don't know because the Eagles as a whole, I guess you could kind of call it an enigma of moves for the sake of moves. It feels like it sometimes.
Oh, yeah. And I think anyone who has been following the Eagles or just the NFL could admit that a lot of these moves that they make aren't to help the organization or help the team. It's just that seems like they got their little bored and they want something to do.
Yeah, but I think we can move to, I think, what might be the biggest winners of this deal. Of course, it all depends on the players taken with the picks, but the Miami Dolphins have definitely set themselves up in about an excellent position as they could have hoped for. I know we like to rag on the Dolphins really for two things, that being the mishandling of Tua's rookie year, as well as cutting Kyle Van Noy. But really, aside from those two things, they have set themselves up for a very, very bright future. Just to recap their end of the deal, they traded away the third overall pick, the 123rd overall pick, which is a fourth rounder this year, as well as a first rounder next year. And in exchange, they receive the sixth overall pick, a fifth rounder this year, a first rounder next year, a first and a third rounder in 2023. So that is quite the haul.
Definitely, they've really built up a key to success right now, and it seems like they are gonna rebuild their team through the draft. And we both said this for all the things we said bad about the Dolphins. We both admitted that they were a surprising team last year, in a year that was supposed to be a rebuilding year for them to do what they did. We already could see, we believe, at least me at least, but we talked about how they could be contenders in the playoffs, how they can make a deep push. And through the draft, with a lot of great prospects, it really does seem possible. They are really the opposite of the Rams, where as the Rams have like zero, they don't really have first round picks. The Dolphins have too many, and they don't even have to use all those picks. They could trade up and make a thing. And they got 4 first round picks from the Larney Tunsil trade with the Texans. They could definitely do builds like that throughout the rest of the next 2-3 years.
I mean, it will be hard to find another Bill O'Brien to trade with, but I mean, what they've done what they've gotten from the Laramie Tunsil trade, among other things, the hollow draft picks that they've gotten, the position that they set themselves up in, and not to mention really, because I think the two positions of need that we've pointed out for them is, number one, a replacement for Kyle Van Noy, that middle linebacker, anchor of the defense, and number two is just skill position players, because really none have really stood out. I think really aside from Devontae Parker, you can make a little bit of a case for, but that's really about it. But I will tell you what, at 6 overall, there are a lot of different options that they have. They could either take a guy like Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle or Kyle Pitts to give Tua another weapon on offense, or it's very likely that Micah Parsons on defense will be available.
Definitely. And we all know the top 2, even maybe 3 picks are going to be a quarterback. So that definitely leaves a lot of room for the future for who they want to get on what side of the ball.
Absolutely. I mean, okay, yeah, I don't really know where I was going to go with that, but we need to move on somehow. I don't really have a good transition.
Well, I do. We are both football fans. We love the game. And for a lot of us, it indicates that time's passing by, that the games are just so short, and there's a lot of times where they defend for time's flying by, the season's almost over. The NFL said screw that, and they decided to add one more regular season week.
Yeah, if you don't know, we are ones that, first of all, weren't all that thrilled by the idea of adding in the 7th seed to the playoffs. I mean, really, like, if you watch those 2 versus 7 seed games, yeah, it feels like really rewarding mediocrity and just having more games for the sake of having more games. And this is no different. The formula of a 16-game regular season and a 12-team playoff was perfect as it was, and they don't need to complicate things anymore. If you don't know, the 17th game is going to be an interconference game, based on another rotating division, based on, I believe, the division outside of your conference you played 2 years ago, and the same sort of division placement. Those two teams play each other. There are people who can explain it better than I can. If you want to know who your team's playing, I'm sure there are ways you can find that out, but I'm not here to tell you that. What I am here to tell you is that it's more complicated, and I liked how the schedule wasn't all that complicated. Another thing that it does is with an odd number of games, you're going to have an uneven amount of home and away games. Unless you want to put in neutral site games, which I would be a strong advocate for, to have games in places like Portland or San Antonio or Milwaukee, some of these like mid-sized markets that don't have NFL franchises but do love football and would love to host a game. I would love to see some of those games there. Although I don't see the NFL implementing that, which means that some teams are going to have 9 home games and 8 away games. Some teams are going to have 9 away games, 8 home games. And that's just less and less parity.
Yeah, and there's definitely a lot wrong with what they're doing now. And a big thing is also player safety. A lot of players were against the 17 game season. They were really not for it. They want to rest up. They wanted to take that time to relax. They didn't want to damage their bodies as much as as much as they're doing already. With that, the NFL is throwing player safety out of the window. They're really saying, "Screw you guys. Let's just get the bags and that's it." And while I also, for another argument for it, we talked about before how the NFL prices are high because they say, "Oh, we're only having 8 games a year." Now you're having 9. Let's see how NFL prices go. They're going to keep those prices up the same as usual because they can. They're also going to have that argument for, "Hey, why are you having 9 games and you're still raising the prices?" You're also having too much of a home advantage, as some teams are going to get 9 home games. Some teams are only going to get 8, and you're going to throw that off. And again, to agree with you, I would love to see neutral cities have games like Portland. Like Portland would be a great thing to see, and you can also have Mexico games, London games, and all that kind of stuff. Canada games even. Those would be really fun to see, but we obviously know that the NFL won't do that because they will have to charge. They will be losing a little bit more money by flying the players out, flying everything out to set it up. What the NFL is doing now is morally wrong. You're going to damage the players more than they are already. You already know that they don't want it, all for money. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see a player strike in the near future.
Yeah, I mean, this was a big sticking point for the owners in the CBA last year, the ability to add in the 17th game. And really, I think Cam Jordan said it best in a tweet from him. I don't have it up, so I'm just going to paraphrase that that we all saw it coming, really. That I think no one's really surprised by this, but just sort of disappointed that does this need to happen?
No, not at all. We didn't need this. Everyone was fine with 16 games. It was even. It was simple. Now you're just complicating everything. And just going back, the Bears aren't going to have only have 8 games. Obviously, they're going to play the Chiefs are obviously going to have 9 home games. We got a home game. So the Browns got 9 home games. But that's not fair. That's not the fairness that it was. You're overcomplicating things that needs to be. Keep it the even numbers. Keep it the 16. No one was asking for 17 game seasons. The only people who were asking for that was the owners as a way to capitalize off their franchises.
Yeah, what really more can we say to that? I forget how long ago I heard this phrase, but it's really stuck with me. I believe this was Dave Rothenberg of ESPN radio. If it doesn't make sense, it makes dollars, and that is exactly what this does. That it makes just that extra buck. So throw everything else out the window. So with that being said, do we have any more topics to go over? Because I have something prepared to end us off on a good note. So I just want to make sure that I'm ending it then.
No, you can end us off in a good way.
All right. So actually, I kind of have two things actually. That one I just sort of realized on the spot is that at the time of recording this, it is Tuesday, like we said, March 30th. So meaning that as far as the NCAA men's tournament goes, 2 of the final 4 have been solidified, Baylor and Houston. Both of those teams have ended long Final Four droughts. Baylor has not made a Final Four since 1950. Houston not since 1984. Both of them will be in the Final Four. One of them will be in the national championship game. So that's just good to see. A lot of droughts ending on that front. But what I had originally wanted to say was, I don't know if you remember the 2013 MLB Draft. I mean, truthfully, I remember because that was the first draft I saw. The Cubs took a guy named Chris Bryant, but that's not the point of this. The point of this is that the number one overall pick that year was Mark Appel. And unfortunately, he is one of three number one overall picks in MLB history to never make it to the majors. In 2018, be it from a rough start in the minors, be it from a lot of injuries afterwards. In 2018, he decided to step away from the game. He was in the Phillies farm system at the time, and now he is making a return.
Well, good for him. And I think for a lot of us, I think just for all of us, we wish him the best of luck.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no one ever really wants to see any prospect flop, and to see I mean what he's gone through, the expectations, the sort of time away from the game, that hopefully this will provide him a fresh perspective of a nothing to lose attitude. That, I mean, we're all rooting for him.
Definitely. We wish him the best of luck in his career.
And with that, I think that's a note we can end this episode off on. So thank you so much for listening to us and bearing with us, even in spite of these technical difficulties. Man, this is going to be a pain to edit, but the show must go on, even with delays. But again, thank you so much for listening to us and bearing with us. We will do this at some... Man, I'm so used to every single day, Monday through Thursday, in the outro. We will have one more episode this week planned for you guys. So stay tuned for that. It'll probably go up on Thursday. Here's a hint. What else is happening on Thursday? But if you have any questions, comments, or something you want us to talk about, you can on YouTube leave a comment down below, or anywhere else. Email us at number2fanspodcast@gmail.com. They go up to Spotify, Anchor, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. And if I'm not forgetting anything, which with these kinds of episodes I always am, I better not be forgetting anything.
No, I think that was it.
All right. So until next time, we will talk to you then.